one of the islands.
Yeah, or you could do it either way. You could leave them here, or you could leave them out there and just come up here.
Oh, yeah, that's service, yeah.
Have you been coming here at all?
I'm sorry?
Have you been coming to Lake Street for very long?
Oh, gosh, for almost a year and a half, 2 years. Yeah.
Oh, wait.
I think we met once because I wanted to join the choir.
That's right.
But then COVID hit and I just couldn't do the Zoom thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, I've now placed you.
Yeah.
Well, you're so welcome to join us.
Thank you.
We'll be singing through most of May. Then we take a break for the summer, but
Okay.
join us now if you want. It'd be great to have you.
Well,
We're not meeting this Wednesday because
my life has been really complicated with work because people are departing. So my schedule's been really crazy.
Yeah.
But I have intentions. to
Okay.
return.
Well, when it's right.
And it's okay for readers to be unmasked.
I think when you're reading.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Yes.
Because
I think
I get so hot, I can't.
we're so ready, but I understand there are some families with young children who just are not comfortable yet coming if most of us aren't masked. So that's why we're still,
Okay.
the choir really wants to unmask us. Be patient. Yes, we met on a very snowy day. I came over to your place.
Good morning. Welcome to Lake Street Church of Evanston. We also have a new online system, greetings to all the folks following us on YouTube. I promise you it looks a little like a TV screen. It's pretty incredible. There's like a miniature TV studio. Thank you also to the people who got trained on how to do that and who are working diligently and hard, and I'm just really thankful for their efforts. Yeah. So I think many of you know that we have a special guest who's our Minister Emeritus who's going to be preaching this Sunday. I'm sure many of you are excited to see him, as I know I am excited to see him. I'll give him a proper warm introduction, but I just want to name that excitement that many of you feel and I feel. There's a lot of good energy in this place, and I'm very thankful for it. So I'm going to begin with our reading of the Native Lands and Reparations acknowledgement, and you can follow along in your bulletin. This is the land of the Council of Three Fires, the Potawatomi, Ojibwe, and Odawa. This land also served as an important meeting place for the Miami, Ho-Chunk, Menominee, Anoka, Sac, Fox, Peoria, Arapaho, and Cheyenne, and other tribal nations. Outside the front door of the church, the original shoreline of Lake Michigan once stood. The land Lake Street Church of Evanston currently inhabits was used by many indigenous people as a gathering, trading, and ritual space. Nearby on Ridge Avenue, there existed a trail that led all the way up to Green Bay, Wisconsin. And this land was seized by white settlers as part of the wave of settler colonialism and genocide that constituted the eventual United States. We, as Lake Street Church of Evanston, acknowledge our ongoing participation in those legacies and commit ourselves to deeper understanding and action. This land was also the site of further white supremacy and racism, a legacy which we also name today. Over time, Evanston's black citizens have been systematically excluded from equal access to housing, education, health care, police protection, and participation in public recreational opportunities. One result of these compounded inequities is today's tremendous wealth gap between black and white residents. Most regrettably, with a few notable exceptions, white faith communities allow the inequitable policies and practices to persist without resistance, while even participating and benefiting from them. Disparities continue to this day, and we join other faith communities that are stepping forward to respond. In accordance with our covenant to act against injustice and for peace, Lake Street Church supports the City of Evanston's current efforts to address this injustice through its reparations programs. And now I would like to invite a special guest forward. Our co-moderator, Karen Kidd, is going to give us a bit of an update.
Good morning, Lake Street. So my name is Karen Kidd. I'm one of the co-moderators on the board along with Bill Bridges. I wanted to address the congregation for a few minutes this moment to continue the dialogue in regards to reparations to Second Baptist. I don't want to bury the lead here. No final decisions have been made about what, if anything, will be the end result of this idea. I know there's been both excitement and concern in the church regarding what the outcome of this process might look like, and also about the timeline of when anything might happen. Some people in the congregation are 100% on board and believe we need to do things right now and make complex plans with specific goals while the iron is hot. We, the co-mods, the board, and Michael, we hear you. We're listening. But here's the thing. We all need to be listening. To each other, yes, but even more importantly, to Second Baptist. We all have to understand that this has the potential to be a big deal. Who knows, maybe a historic deal of direct reparations. But Second Baptist is going to need time to process that. They need to decide what, if anything, would be appropriate, and they need to have the time, space, and privacy to have their own conversations. When they're ready, we need to be willing to follow their lead. If you don't mind, I'd like to take a moment and share a personal story. My husband, Stephen, who's back there running the cameras, we took a psychology class together when we were in college. Mental health is, of course, a very messy business. So students would ask questions, and maybe some of the answers seemed to conflict with each other, and students might get confused or even frustrated about this. But every time this happened, the professor, he'd just get a gentle smile, and he'd say in a very soft voice, "If you take just one thing from this class, I hope that this is it. Things are complex." Stephen and I still parrot that phrase back to each other to this day. It's our shorthand for, I don't have all the answers, but I'm trying to understand and I'm trying to do the right thing. So, I'd like to say that to all of you now. Things are complex. There's no straightforward solution. Our relationship with Second Baptist is complex. Any good proposal will be complex. Our job as a congregation right now is to put forth a little effort at patience, which is not easy for us. We get an idea, we get excited about that idea, and as quick as we can, we want to put that love in action. But in this conversation, in this apology to Second Baptist, we have to remember who the aggrieved party is. We don't get to unilaterally dictate terms while also asking to be forgiven for historic injustices. That's not to say that we're not doing nothing or that we're passively waiting. Dr. Neighbors and Michael have a very strong partnership that we are proud to witness. The Second Baptist leadership and congregation have been talking amongst themselves just as we have, and they have set up 4 discovery committees to navigate this conversation, and they have questions of their own. I'd like to announce today that the board had a special meeting last Thursday to approve the creation of parallel committees at LSC along with a slate of participants. The 4 committee topics are finance, spiritual status, ministry, and governance. We have tapped 19 people from Lake Street, leadership, and from the larger congregation to sit on these committees. We're all really grateful to those that answered the call and agreed to be a part of this. And it's also important to note that these committees are not going to operate behind a curtain in a smoke-filled room. That's not how we do things. Pat will be sending out the slate of participants next week, so you'll all know who's serving. As conversations progress and proposals are made, the committees will be coming back to the board with progress reports, suggestions, and I'm certain many more questions. Each committee will elect someone to provide regular communication to not only the board, but directly to the congregation. For now, an orientation will be planned for these new LSC discovery committees, and soon the committees will meet to review questions that Second Baptist has already sent to us. Eventually, our committee will meet with their committee members at Second Baptist, and they'll all talk together. At the special board meeting, a good question was asked. What is the charge or goal of these committees? The answer is relationship building. Right now, most of us have a fairly superficial relationship with our sister church, so we simply need to work on getting to know each other better. Hopefully, this is just the beginning of these groups will certainly not be the sum total of LSC's exploration process of reparations to our sister church. Other congregational meetings and events will take place as outlined in Michael's recent emails, and there will be more avenues for discussions in smaller group settings, which will most likely be organized by the existing SB3C. We're all figuring this out together, no matter if you're feeling anxiety or excitement at all the wonderful possibilities this could bring to both Second Baptist and us. I'm going to ask you to just remember, patience is one of the hardest prayers to ask. It can also be one of the most rewarding gifts to watch, like watching a garden that you have tended blossom into its full potential after a long, cold winter. Or to put it another way, things are complex. Now, normally this is where I'd say blessed be at Lake Street Church, but I feel like this moment begs for me to return to my Black Southern Baptist roots. So can I please get an amen? Amen. Oh, come on now. Amen. Oh, come on now. Amen. Amen.
Good morning. Please join me in the call to worship. We are called together in the spirit of truth to remember. There are places of hate. Let this be a place of love. There are places that injure. Let this be a place of healing and wholeness. Some places deny, revile, and exclude. Here we welcome everyone as sisters and brothers. Here we seek to embody the beloved community. Blessed be. The ancient witness reading is from Mark 9:35. Sitting down, Jesus called the 12 and said, "Anyone who wants to be first must be the very last and the servant of all." Blessed be.
Ringing out far and near.
And now is the time for our children to continue their worship in their Sunday school rooms. And so we invite you forward. Our teachers are right here. They're making their way there. And we invite you. And so we're not going to be sharing because it's a lot if you're to ask someone who's not preaching here all the time to sort of incorporate your spiritual reflections into the middle of the sermon, because it's a bit of an odd thing to do, even though I like to do it. But I want you to treasure in your heart for a moment and consider the sort of question that you might ask yourself. What is, and if you ever experienced a holy cycle, a cyclical movement in your life that has been blessed, holy, good for resilience, you name it, whatever you want. Put a good adjective in there, though. And I want you to treasure that in your heart. Consider it. Think about it a little bit as we listen to the song that we would usually have you be writing these out to. And as we sing it together, Spirit, open my heart.
The second ancient witness reading is from the Gospel of Thomas 70. If you will bring forth what is within you, it will save you.
Blessed be. It's not a fake out. I'm going to introduce Bob Thompson, just so you know. I didn't get you in here to hear the man speak and then tell you no. So I want to introduce, for those who don't know Bob Thompson, he was here 30 years. His leadership was really transformative and important for many of your spiritual lives, and I look up to him as someone who really laid the foundation of what would be Lake Street Church of Evanston, which is the church that I wanted to come and pastor. So I definitely look up to him. You could say he's an experienced getter-inner of good trouble, maybe, and so therefore I thought he'd be useful to speak into the current moment, and he might have some real wisdom to share with us, and I know he does. And so I want you to pretend like Bob's a little bit like your favorite music act that I just introduced. And can we welcome the Minister Emeritus back to the pulpit?
My, oh my. Thank you, Michael, for your magnificent leadership. Every time I tune into your leadership style and content, I am deeply moved. I'm so deeply inspired by the way that you and Pastor Neighbors have joined hands and hearts and strive to build the beloved community in Evanston. Thank you. And thanks for the invitation, I think, to stand in this pulpit again. Although I'm a little anxious, I'm not used to talking to groups of people anymore, but small groups around a dinner table, yes. And those of you who know me know I can't begin a sermon without some of the quotes from the Yogi Master of all time, Yogi Berra. No doubt you've all heard this one. When you come to a fork in the road, take it. We are all forkers one way or the other. Another yogi expression is what I feel today. This is like deja vu all over again. And one more yogi quote that applies to what I've been observing with the Lake Street Church and Second Baptist rings true. You can observe a lot by watching. With great interest, I have been observing and watching what's happening in Evanston around reparations, and I have been inspired by the conversations that have emerged between these two sister churches. And let me say, Karen, what you said this morning is already the sermon. Thank you. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, Lake Street Church, for living out the words of your covenant adapted in 2006. This covenant was a result of many months of dialogue that included many moments of joy, angst, and great anxiety. It was a challenging process, like everything is in a church. But I have forever believed that this covenant is a work of art that comes from the very heart of this community, and the lines that I cherish the most are, we promise to make this church a womb of contemplation and action, so as to clarify our vision and strengthen our resolve to act against injustice and for peace. Ever since adopting this covenant over 15 years ago, you have been a continuous womb of contemplation and action. This I believe. This community is forever pregnant with possibilities. Many times over, Lake Street Church has gone into the labor of love and given birth to a new life. But living in the womb of contemplation, we are all conscious of our shady past. Most all of us are familiar with what happened in this building back in 1882 when Nathan Branch and other African American members of then First Baptist Church left the balcony where they sat every day, every Sunday. Living in the womb of contemplation means facing our past, but also acknowledging that we are here now ready to give birth to a new life. The big question is, how can we embody the beloved community moving forward? We take this journey by first acknowledging the genetic spirituality of predominantly white Christian churches. Rooted in our past, in our genetic spirituality, is white privilege and white supremacy. Why do you think black members of this church decided to leave in 1882? Big surprise. They were living in a culture of white privilege and white supremacy, and it was time to create a community where they felt safe and free to be themselves. In the womb of contemplation, we confess these painful truths. But in this deep labor, we're also ready to give birth to a new beloved community. That said, every meaningful journey is messy. I can't resist saying it again. Every meaningful journey is messy. While preparing a sermon, I naturally reflected on my early experience with y'all, as we say in Georgia. And after all, old people are inevitably can't help themselves to talk about the past, so I'm going to talk about the past for just a little bit. These old people are laughing. They know this, so they know that's true. In the mid-1990s, we were facing challenging times in this church. We knew that we could not keep up with the huge deficits and the costs of the building maintenance, and we were a very small congregation. We knew back then that things had to change if we were to give birth to new life and new possibilities. So while going through the messy process of changing the name of the church from First Baptist to Lake Street Church, there was a lot of hand-wringing and gut-wrenching. We held several versions of town hall meetings before they were called town hall meetings, I think. And some of our members who we loved and cherished said if we changed the name of the church, they would leave. After we changed the name of the church, some of them did. But the laboring of those days also allowed us to give birth to a new reality. We adopted the theme, "The future is now." That theme reminded us that we must acknowledge the past. Our work is to carry the memory of the past while not allowing the past to define who we are in the present and the future. Making that transition was not an easy process, but it was absolutely necessary. I share this as a reminder that being pregnant with new life and giving birth to new possibilities is always messy and painful. But unless we face the difficulty and pain going into labor, we cannot give birth. It's also long been my belief that the name change of this church in 1995 was built on another change that took place in 1991. It was in 1991 that we first joined hands and hearts with Second Baptist Church. That moment in 1991 laid the groundwork for changing the name of the church 4 years later. And now, all of these years later, I'm so deeply moved that Second Baptist Church in Lake Street continue the marathon of love, justice, and compassion. I vividly remember in 1991 standing in the pulpit of Second Baptist Church while we shared the resolution of reconciliation that was written to members of Second Baptist Church. People in both congregations were deeply moved. At the end of the service, there was not a dry eye in the house. 1991. Later that day, I recall speaking to a member of Second Baptist Church and telling her we'd come to ask for forgiveness. She turned to me with a big smile and said, "Oh, Reverend Thompson, we forgave you a long time ago." Following that service in 1991, Second Baptist pastor Dr. Heisel B. Taylor and I led a walk from Second Baptist to Lake Street Church, where we were surrounded by hundreds of members of both of our congregations, and arriving here, Dr. Taylor preached. Over several years, Heisel and I would have regular conversations. In the same way, the two Michaels are doing that. We would always finish every meeting with the same question, so where do we go from here? Which was also the title of Dr. King's last published book. Where do we go from here? Chaos or community? Now, living in this present moment and looking to the future, the persistent question that grows in this womb of contemplation is, where do we go from here? On this journey, it is very important to not be in a hurry, as Karen mentioned. Being in labor requires breathing in and breathing out. A new life will not be born until the time is right. So what's the answer? What will be born out of these reparation conversations between Lake Street Church and Second Baptist Church? Well, it all depends. It all depends on the quality of the conversation. The future is always depending on how we show up here and now, and how we receive each other in this present moment. So what's next? I hear people asking that question a lot since I've been in town. It all depends. Everyone engaged in these reparation conversations has a right to have their own voice heard. Everyone. The beloved community takes birth when everyone speaks in their own voice and when we learn to sing together a new song. Today's texts come from the Gospel of Mark and the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas. And in the Gospel in Mark, we heard these words. Sitting down, Jesus called the 12 and said, "Anyone who wants to be first must be very last and servant of all." And in the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus says, "If you will bring forth what is within you, it will save you." Both of these texts point to a single truth. Embedded within every living being, sometimes hidden, is the consciousness of unity. Our work is not to fix the world. Our work is to bring wholeness and heal the brokenness everywhere. Put another way, embedded in every living being is the mysterious truth that we are all related and interconnected. Thich Nhat Hanh came up with a wonderful term, interbeing. If you haven't looked it up, look it up. Because it's about unity consciousness. It's about how we're all connected one to each other, and everything is connected to it. Everything is connected. Where there's no unity consciousness, there is torture and war. Where there is no unity consciousness, there's racism, sexism, homophobia. Where there's no unity consciousness, there is violence, animosity, alienation, and arrogance. It is only when we work on ourselves that we will change, and as we change, the world around us changes. Big surprise, huh? Unity consciousness is the ability to see that we're all a part of each other because we are all born out of the same divine womb. Reparations begins when we face the truth of the past and confess that the past is still present. Reparations begins when we shut our mouths and open our hearts and listen to each other. The journey begins when we listen, 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 listen. Shush. Reparations won't fix everything. I wish I could change the whole damn world. This world is forever crazy, but as Billy Joel put it in the song, we didn't start the fire. We didn't start the fire, but we can join hands and hearts and put it out so that a new life can be born within us and among us. Singer-songwriter Carrie Newcomer, who's a favorite of many of us, has this one song, 3 feet or so. Sums up what we can and must do. I can't change the whole world, but I can change the world I know, what's within 3 feet or so. These reparation conversations are all about changing the world we know and live in, here and now. Dear sisters and brothers, what began and continued during 1882 to 1991 continues today as a long labor of love. So specifically, what does reparations between Lake Street Church and Second Baptist mean? Well, reparations begins when we tell the truth from both sides. And while we're all one together, there are differences in our two communities. We must face these differences. Lake Street Church and Second Baptist Church are two different cultures unto themselves. This truth must be faced directly. The big question is how we can celebrate the diversity of our two congregations and come together to create one new beloved community. That's why I say the future is now, again and again and again. Now that Lake Street Church and Second Baptist are pregnant and in labor, giving birth to a new truth will be messy and sometimes painful process. Over my 37 years of ministry, I spent a lot of time sitting with people who were dying. Over and over again, I would hear people say, you know, what frightens me is not death, but dying. Likewise, it's one thing to have given birth, but another thing altogether to be in labor. It's always the transition that unhinges us. Transitions are a source not only of hope, but also anxiety. How we will show up here and now is how we give birth to a world of new possibilities. Meaningful change begins by stepping out of our comfort zone and stretching our lives into a new reality. Dear Lake Street Church, even though I live some 700 miles from Evanston in a much warmer climate, I want you to know that I'm with you in spirit. Soon it will be time to give birth out of the comfort zone, but not until it's time. I want to close with a quote from Maya Angelou, who once said, "We delight in the beauty of the butterfly, but rarely admit to the changes it has gone through to achieve that beauty." The future is now, again and again, and if we are conscious, intentional, and compassionate about the changes we make, like a butterfly, we will take our wings. Blessed be.
as you end your moment of silence, if you could join me in the responsive call to prayer printed in your bulletin. Open unto me light for my darkness. Open unto me hope for my despair. Open unto me joy for my sorrow. Open unto me wisdom for my confusion. Open unto me tenderness for my toughness. Open unto me thyself for myself. All right, our folks online, I know that this is a new system, but there's a chat function on YouTube Live, and you can make use of it. If you want to put in your prayer requests in there, then you're going to be able to do so. And you can add them just on the chat function. It should be in the top right-hand corner if you're looking at the screen. If you're on a computer, at least I can say that. Sometimes it changes based on iPad, mobile, all sorts of stuff. We lift up these prayers. You and I together make love. Thanksgiving for Bob's being here, and he knows how to say it. He does, doesn't he? Prayer for listening to each other. Prayers for the people of Ukraine and the conscripted Russian soldiers who are the pawns of Putin. Prayers for Allison. May she get exactly what she needs. Prayer for collective consciousness to lift the vibration of this planet. Prayers for my husband as he stops smoking. Prayers for the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of the pastor. That's me. Thank you. Prayers for my health, the two of those. Thank you. Well, none of y'all are praying online. That makes it hard. But we got a comment, which is kind of like a prayer. That what an inauguration, that's awesome sound, awesome video, awesome sermon. So I'm going to go for thank you for our producers in the back there who are making this go online, and thank you for everybody's patience, and we appreciate you. Okay, I can see it might be a couple weeks before we figure out how to pray online. That's okay. I guess it will be. But let's lift up these prayers. Holy One, we offer up to you all the various parts of our lives, things so different. We offer up to you the anxieties that plague us and hold us in place. We offer up to you our hopes, our dreams, the sort of aspirations that make us who we are. We offer up to you our whole selves. We're not going to keep anything back. What we ask is that you wouldn't keep anything back from us either, that you would pour out a spirit of love, a spirit of truth, a spirit of reconciliation, a power in the spirit to do things that you have called us to do. We give thanks for this place, this blessed, this holy place. We give thanks that it exists longer than a human lifetime, and that enables us to think about how we might use this place to really fulfill what you are calling us to do, to fulfill this as a site of love, a site of reconciliation. Who knows what we may give birth to and help that to be something that's exciting. Who knows? For all great things start with who knows. And so we give you thanks for the who knows. We give you thanks for all of it. We lift it all up before you because you have the capacity to hold. You have the capacity to keep things together. You have the capacity to make us feel seen and heard and known as no other can. We also lift up prayers of thanksgiving to be able to hear Bob, and one of you figured out how to pray, and we thank you for the figuring out how to pray and help us to figure out in the 21st century what it means to lift these prayers up. Amen, and blessed be. Now we're going to hear from our wonderful choir, who's going to give us a great offertory. As we do that, I invite you, if you give online, obviously we appreciate that. There are offering plates in the back, and I just want to say thank you for everyone's time, energy, attention, and yes, money as well. We really appreciate that, as that helps us move and be able to carry out our mission here at Lake Street Church of Evanston. We are just thankful for that support. I will also say, if any of you, because it's Selection Sunday, and so if you are a big college basketball fan, if you got any desperate prayers that you put out there, we are here to receive any promises you make during March Madness. If you say that you're going to dedicate your life to the church or something, we're here to collect on that. Just let us know whatever promises you tend to make. Thank you. Holy One, we give thanks for all these gifts of time, money, energy, and attention, and we add our blessing now to the song that was sung, which was so beautiful and which surely bless this place. Amen, and blessed be.
The call to commitment is a prayer of inspiration by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. May I become at all times, both now and forever, a protector for those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without light, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, and a servant to all in need. Blessed be.